Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addresses the United Nations amid the warfare between Israel and Hamas in Gaza City and the international support for a Palestinian state. At the same time, there is little support for Israel to annex the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria in the West Bank. We're going to hear the latest debate on all of those issues. President Donald Trump making a strong change on his position on Ukraine and Russia. We're going to hear what the president is now saying about what Ukraine can accomplish in its war against Vladimir Putin's forces. And it's a new film based on a long-running animated television series. We're going to bring you our Studio 5 look at Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, the 26th of September. Going to begin this half hour with the military and political conflicts in the Middle East as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addresses the United Nations today. And Israel is reminding the world of how the current conflict began with Hamas's attacks on October 7th. Amid the warfare in Gaza City, in Washington and New York, there is still talk of a peace agreement. CBN's Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has the story.
President Trump says he had good talks with Middle East leaders, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, about ending the war in Gaza.
We're trying to get the end of the Gaza situation. It's really bad, very bad. And we think it could happen. Maybe it could happen pretty soon. We want the hostages back. We want the bodies back. And we want to have peace in that region.
But he forcefully rejected any plans by Israel to declare sovereignty over Biblical Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank.
Well, I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen.
Netanyahu's government has been talking about annexing the territory in response to multiple nations recognizing a Palestinian state. More than 700,000 Israelis live in Jewish communities there, as well as around 3 million Palestinians in their own cities and villages. Even President Trump has said the UK, France, and multiple other nations are giving a prize to Hamas by recognizing a Palestinian state. Netanyahu has said he will announce his response to the move after he meets with Trump at the White House on Monday. It's his fourth invitation there since Trump took office, more than any other world leader. The prime minister arrived in New York Thursday ahead of his UN speech. His office launched a campaign in New York called Remember October 7th, using dozens of huge billboards and trucks around the UN and Times Square. It's to remind world leaders and the public of the atrocities perpetrated by Hamas on that day and the brutality of the terrorist organization that is still holding 48 hostages in Gaza. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas addressed the UN General Assembly via video after the Trump administration denied him a visa. Nevertheless, he said he is ready to work with Trump, Saudi Arabia, France, and the UN to implement a peace plan proposed earlier this week.
Today we say clearly, peace cannot be achieved if justice is not achieved, and there can be no justice if Palestine is not freed.
Palestinian groups like Hamas and the PA believe a free Palestine includes getting rid of Israel altogether. Despite talk of peace in New York, war continues in the Middle East. Dozens of Israeli Air Force jets struck military targets in Yemen following a Houthi drone attack on Eilat that evaded Israeli air defenses and wounded 44 people.
We struck the command headquarters of the Houthis' general staff, compounds, and additional military camps belonging to the security and intelligence apparatus. We will continue to act with force against the terrorist Houthi rule.
In Gaza, IDF spokesman Brigadier General Effie Dufresne says the Air Force is striking about 200 terror targets per day while continuing the humanitarian and civilian effort to evacuate Gaza civilians for their protection. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem with more. So, Chris, President Trump has now said publicly what had been reported earlier. He will not allow Israel to annex key parts of the West Bank. What's the reaction there in Israel been, and how do you think Netanyahu is going to respond?
Well, some of the reaction, Ephraim, came from Judea and Samaria. One of them, Yossi Dagan, he's the head of it's called the Samaria Regional Council. Despite what Trump said, he's urging Netanyahu to defy Washington and go ahead and declare sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. Another member of the Knesset said, with all due respect to the U.S., the decision to apply sovereignty doesn't lie with the White House, but it lies with the Israeli government and the Knesset. He is advising Netanyahu to go ahead and declare sovereignty. Another said the Jewish people's sovereignty over the Jewish homeland doesn't depend on an external source, even one as loving and friendly as can be. And then many people believe, faced with all the European countries right now that are recognizing a Palestinian state, it's the time to apply sovereignty. And what Netanyahu will do, I'm sure he's going to wait till after he meets with President Trump on Monday at the White House, and he's going to balance many things, Ephraim, between pressure here in Israel to go ahead and declare sovereignty and what you just heard from the president. He says he won't let it happen.
Just why that land is so important to many Israelis.
Well, people need to understand Judea and Samaria. It's often called the West Bank in the world, but Jew, the word Jew comes from Judea. It's a biblical heartland of Israel. 80% of the events in the Bible took place there. Hebron, Bethel, Shiloh. Bethlehem is central to Jewish history and to our Christian faith. It's where Abraham walked, Jacob dreamed. King David, born in Bethlehem. The tabernacle, that's stored in Shiloh for 369 years. This is where the prophets Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel all prophesied. So these places aren't foreign to the Jewish people. They're the cradle of their nation and the faith. And it's also, Ephraim, strategically important because this land sits right on Israel's narrow coastal plain where most of Israel's population lives. And who controls those highlands really controls essential security against attacks from the east.
The Palestinian delegation at the UN is trying to get countries to walk out on Benjamin Netanyahu's speech at the UN today. What has Israel said about that?
Well, what they plan to do is that they actually plan to put a lot of junior staff into the General Assembly and then not necessarily senior diplomats. Ambassador Danny Danon, he's Israel's ambassador to the UN. He says it's a cheap stunt just to distract from Netanyahu and from the truth of what he's going to say. He believes it's going to create a misleading and a staged image of this mass departure. He says the Palestinian delegation is really adept at the empty spectacle that he expects later today at the General Assembly. That will be 9 o'clock on East Coast time when Benjamin Netanyahu speaks.
Do you think Hamas is trying to use this week at the UN as a propaganda victory against Israel?
Ephraim, indeed, I think they already have said that. In fact, one of a senior Hamas members said October 7th created what he called, quote unquote, a golden moment for Palestinians. They say 194 countries now endorsing a Palestinian state. That's what happened after 8 more countries this week declared a Palestinian state, including the UK, France, and Canada. He says, and this is what Hamas is saying, that this war for the last 2 years after October 7th exposed the brutality of Israel and condemned the Jewish state, not necessarily exposing the brutality of what Hamas did on October 7th. And that's why you see this effort by the Prime Minister's office to put all those trucks in Times Square, reminding people of actually what happened on October 7th. But Hamas, on the other hand, believes it's a golden moment, as I said, for the world to change history. And they also believe that Hamas can play a role in a future independent Palestinian state. And just to go back to talk about, West Bank or Judea and Samaria, this is really the place where the story with God and Abraham and his people began, and they believe it still continues today.
Supporters of Israel are asking if Hamas and other Palestinian groups want to eliminate Israel altogether. How then can there be a Palestinian state and security for Israel at the same time?
Well, that's what a lot of Israelis are asking, you know, and October 7th really changed the mentality of a lot of Israelis. Certainly we know what Hamas did on October 7th and how most people believe they can never be part of a future Palestinian state if anyone ever does get established. But on the other hand, the Palestinian Authority, if you look at what they say in their own language, their own people, they say we own the place. Israel will come to an end. We'll return all of the occupied Palestine to the Palestinian people. So they believe in an end to Israel. Not only Hamas, but many parts of the Palestinian Authority believe that too. So hard to believe that there can be a Palestinian state and the kind of security people of Israel desire.
Quite a busy week. What do you have for us today on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, Ephraim, updates on the latest developments. We have an analysis on the current situation and the talk with Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump with CBN senior editor John Wagi. We have Eugene Kontrovovich talking about a Christian group that's suing an ex-UN employee. And also, Dinesh D'Souza has done a new documentary called The Dragon's Prophecy. It's coming out the beginning of next month.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your insights. Looking forward to hearing from you, of course, when we return next week. I want to remind you at home that you can get the latest from Jerusalem Dateline at 8 p.m. Eastern on the CBN News Channel. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, and you can find it on YouTube as well. Coming up, President Donald Trump in a dramatic shift, taking a strong stand in support of Ukraine in its war against Russia. We're going to hear what the president is now saying when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. President Donald Trump is making a sharp turn on Ukraine after his meeting with President Zelensky at the United Nations. The president says he now believes Ukraine can win back all the territory it lost to Russia. CBN's George Thomas is on this story.
After the meeting with Zelensky, Trump posted on Truth Social that Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. A dramatic shift from earlier calls for Kyiv to make concessions. Stephen Moore is with the Kyiv-based Ukraine Freedom Project.
President Trump is recognizing that Ukraine can win, which is something that, you know, if you've been in Ukraine like you and I have, you understand that. You know, everybody thought that Russia was going to roll through Ukraine in 3 weeks in 2022, and they didn't.
Trump has moved from publicly scolding Zelensky to praising him.
The president, who we all know very well, is a brave man, and he's putting up one hell of a fight.
He's also sharpening criticism against Vladimir Putin, saying the Russian leader has let him down and mocking the Russian military as a paper tiger.
I think you're seeing the president's frustration and disappointment, frankly, with Putin. He has made innumerable calls. We had the summits in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey, in Alaska, obviously. And look, at the end of the day, Putin has to end this war. The president has made it very clear his intent.
The comments come as Russian drones and fighter jets repeatedly violate NATO airspace.
Do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
Between the violations of Romanian airspace, Polish airspace, and now Estonian airspace, I think Putin, the Russians, should take the message from the president. He's not messing around.
While meeting with Turkey's President Recep Erdogan on Thursday, Trump again called on Putin to end the fighting and urged European nations, including Turkey, to stop fueling the war by buying Russian oil.
I'd like to have him stop buying any oil from Russia while Russia continues this rampage against Ukraine. But it's such a waste of human life, and so he ought to stop. Putin ought to stop.
Meanwhile, at the UN, President Zelensky warned world leaders of what's at stake.
If there are no real security guarantees except friends and weapons And if the world can't respond even to old threats, and if there is no strong platform for international security, will there be any place left on earth that's still safe for people?
George Thomas, CBN News.
Turning to the world of entertainment, when we come back, our Studio 5 look at the new film Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. It's based on the long-running animated television series. We've got that story for you when we come back. Gabby's Dollhouse began as an animated television series and now in its 11th season, the series has given birth to a live-action feature film. It's called Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. It stars Laila Lockhart Kraner as Gabby and music icon Gloria Estefan as Grandma Gigi. Take a look.
A pinch on my left, pinch on my right. Grab Pinky's hand and hold on tight.
Laila, you've grown up with this series, and it continues to grow. What's the biggest adjustment going from small screen to big screen and working alongside the likes of Gloria Estefan?
You can't create that kind of magic on an empty stomach.
You're right. Let me go grab the Gabby hats. Not me in the kitchen. It was a pretty big adjustment. I think one thing that I wasn't really expecting was how to act while you're being watched by so many eyes. Like, I think on the streets of Vancouver, like, we would have scenes where I would just feel the eyes of so many people, and I was like, I don't know, I've been in my little room for the past, 5.5 years just talking to the camera, and that was also another difference, is getting an actor to play off of was really incredible, but I think that was something I was just more excited for, to be able to do on the big screen, is have, another addition to the Gabby universe in the live action world. It was really, really cool.
Gloria, it's hard to believe, but you've been doing music now for 50 years. You're in this movie. You've got to play. How are you keeping that inner child alive?
I am the child. I think being in music, and it just keeps you younger. And all my family, my grandmother, who's a big inspiration for me in this movie, was just one of those kind of people that never stopped playing, that was always creative, that was always looking forward and fun. And my mom was a little more strict, not that way, but my grandma was. And I have passed that on to my kids and to my grandson, because all we do is play. We go to escape rooms, we do all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's just fun. You can't lose a kid in you. There's no reason to. Pinch on my left, pinch on my right. Grab Pandy's hand and hold on tight.
What was it like seeing yourself as an animated figure?
I loved it. Even tinier me. I loved what they did with it, and it was so cute. And I hope I see some kind of action figure so I can have myself there. Her next to the Barbie. Gloria Barbie. It was a blast. And I just saw the movie, and we were blown away. We cried. The whole family was there. It was very special.
Why do you think, Laila, that kids especially, love this franchise so much? I was in the theater with them last night watching, and it's hard to watch the film and watch them, just why are they so in love with this?
I think a really big part is that they are involved in the story. I think that's so important, where, Gabby, the first, scene you see in the show is, oh, hi there, and she's talking to the kid, and I feel like that connection where it's like you're watching your friend play and you're also playing with her. I think it's so important, and kids love to be a part of the story, a part of the magic, and I think it's even bigger and better on the big screen, because it's this huge screen where the story, we've needed the viewer even more in this story, so to have them be involved and be invited to sing and dance and help solve all the problems together with Gabby and with these new characters like Grandma Gigi, I think that's really great. I think they really feel connected to that. All right, everybody. Looks like Vera needs our help, so let's help her.
I'm sorry, who are you talking to?
What was it like for you, Gloria, working with Kristen Wiig?
Oh my gosh, well, I didn't get any one-on-one scenes with her, but watching her riff, and because Ryan gave us the freedom to improvise. So we improvise a lot of things, both on the road trip and everything. But watching her, it's hard to the crew was cracking up. Everybody's laughing. She's just brilliant, and I've followed her career forever. I'm a huge fan, and I gotta say, it was also a draw for me to do this when I found out Kristen was in the movie.
Hot snake, we're gonna point at each other right now. We go point now. Do a little shake and shake it, shake it, shake it.
Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie, is, of course, rated G, and you can see it in theaters starting today. Stay with us. We're coming back with an encouraging word for your weekend. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and today I want to leave you with this faithful thought. Be still, be silent, and believe God has a word for you. He is speaking, and He wants you to listen and respond with obedience. Silence the noise in your mind, silence the noise in your heart, and not only will you hear God, you will see Him and His hand at work in your life. With that word, make this a fabulous Friday and have yourself a wonderful weekend as well. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. Email us, cbnnewswatch@cbn.com. We'll see you Monday.